Hello everyone, it's Karen at Close to My Heart. We are going to do an extra fun process video today with something different than we've ever done before. It's going to be fun to see how it turns out. Before we get started though, I just want to remind you to like, subscribe, and turn on your bell notifications here on YouTube so that you don't miss a Close to My Heart video in the future. Now let's take a look at what we'll be scrapbooking today. I have in front of me a single photo. This photo is me with 3 of our 4 girls. One of them was unable to make it this year. We have a tradition every year that we get together the night before Thanksgiving and do crafts. And we did some really fun ones this year. We did some Christmas banners, we did some cards, we did some treat bags, we did some cool painted chalkboards. We did a lot of cool things. And to me, this is something I want to remember. And I don't need a million pictures. The part that matters is who was there and the relationships that we share. We also eat tons of food. Everyone brings their favorite snacks and we just eat until we're sick and laugh and have so much fun. So this photo to me is all I need to tell this story. So I'm going to be doing a single page layout today. But I challenged myself to do something different and new for this process video, which meant I had to do a little bit of preparing ahead of time because I did a lot of cutting with digital collections on my Cricut, which you could also do on any kind of cutting machine that you have. So what I have done ahead of time is I've cut a bunch of shapes. I chose to use shapes all from one digital collection, which is our Life's a Hoot collection. And I'm going to show you what's in that collection and kind of walk you through what I chose to cut. Okay, so I have a bunch of samples here of what comes in that collection. Usually a collection includes all the pieces to make a 2-page layout and a card or 2, and then a bunch of pieces that you can use in lots of different ways. And as I was looking at the pieces that create this layout, I looked at this piece, this overlay in the back, and thought, wouldn't that be a cool stencil? So I shrunk this down to about, I don't know, 5.5 by 5.5, thinking that might be a really great size to do some stenciling on my page. So I have that cut already right here. You can see how that's same cut, just smaller. Okay, so that's one of the things I did ahead of time. I had to really think through these pieces to make sure I had everything I needed in the video studio and hopefully cut in the right size. So that's one of the things I chose to use for this process video. Another thing that I thought was cool was one of the cards has this really nice floral cluster. And I thought, what if I made that larger to go on a page? And so I cut it several times. Here is, let's see if I can grab a colored cardstock and show you. I cut it out of white, and that's what it looks like large, almost to go across the whole page. I think I cut it about 11 or 11.25 inches wide. And so I cut that thinking that would be fun to put on an actual 12 by 12 page. Then also, I really loved all of these butterflies. This is a page about girls and our girls' night that we do every year. And so I loved these outline butterflies, and I cut them out of some white cardstock, and I also cut them out of, you can see I've got a whole bunch of them here. I didn't know how many I'd want or need. But I also cut a bunch of them out of this really pretty Seabrook cardstock too, because I'm just not sure which color I'm going to want to use. Seabrook is also a very light color, but has more color than white, obviously. And I'm not sure which direction I'm going to go on this page, so I thought it would be better to have a bunch of them and choose from those when I'm ready to scrap. It's always a challenge when I do a process video because we're in a video studio, so I always have to grab a bunch of supplies and hope they're going to do it. But it was extra challenging this time thinking about using one of our digital collections maybe in a little bit different way than we normally do. And you can tell that I've cut these quite a bit larger than the ones that just come in on the digital collection. And you can resize anything on a digital collection. Okay, so that's what I've cut and I'm hoping to use on my page. And I want to talk you through a few other things part of my thought process that went on before I came. I grabbed papers. I didn't grab a lot of different colors because you can see most of the colors in my photo are greens and neutrals. And one trick that maybe is a nice tip for you that I like to do when I am scrapbooking is quite often I'll look at the colors in a photo and I'll think, what would be a lighter version of those colors? Because when you use lighter versions of what's in your photo, that sometimes makes your photo really stand out. Can you see how that's happening here? I've got these soft green pastels and yellows and things, and this is really popping. But I also wanted to have a color to ground my soft colors. I didn't want it to feel too much like an Easter page, and so I thought, what if I grabbed some sapphire, which I love because there's these little tops of these daisies on this paper are sapphire, and I thought that might be pretty. I've also got a sapphire stripe I might try to work in. I've got some greens in cardstocks and some white cardstock, so I thought those would be great. And the other thing I did ahead of time, guys, I know I've done quite a bit ahead of time, but I had to on this one, is I decided to draw myself a sketch so that I could use the pieces I'd cut. So I thought maybe this would be a fun sketch. I would include my horizontal 4x6 photo, a band behind it, and a banner, and maybe the floral piece here that I've already cut could go across that center band that I've got there. And as I was cutting it, I had a little bit of a brainstorm. So I cut a few more. It might be a little bit hard to see on here. I'm going to bring this over where you can see it close up a little bit better. You can see I've cut a couple more, same size, because as I was cutting it, I thought I could recut this in several different colors and then fill all of these in. But what if I sponged them with ink to keep them soft? So we're going to give that a try. I've left it on my Cricut mat because I really think it might be easier if I've already got it on my Cricut mat to sponge it so nothing moves. It's sticky. We'll see how that goes. And then one last thing is I thought, what if I had my title ready so that you didn't have to sit and watch me make my title? I knew my title was going to be Girls Night, and I decided to use one of our really awesome stamp sets with coordinating dies to create a title. So I have that ready to go, and I've also printed my journaling. So really what I need to do is figure out how I want to build this page, which papers are going to go where, whether or not my ideas in my head are going to translate to this sketch and this photo. So let's get started. You can tell that I've left a little border around my page. I love doing that. I love a lot of white space, but I also like something that kind of grounds it around the edge. And you can get that by sponging, but you can also get it with another piece of paper. And I thought this sapphire might be a great place for that. So let's grab my trimmer and start cutting paper and committing to this design. I'm gonna grab this sapphire piece of pattern paper that I have and cut it. Just cut the zip strip off of it so that I have a 12 by 12 piece. This zip strip is darling. I'm going to make sure I keep it because who knows, I might want to use that on the page. So I'll just put my zip strip over here to the side. And so I have a good base for my page. When I do this, sometimes I cut the piece that's going on top of it, whether it's white daisy or something else that's light so that everything really stands out on there. A ½ inch smaller, a ¼ inch smaller, depends on how big of a border you want. I think I'm going to go with a ½ inch off the sides today and see how that looks so that you still get a good shot of that grounding sapphire color, but the white is still the star. And I think that's probably going to be just about right. So I'll plan on that. Now my sketch that I drew, I have that band across the top. Let's look at these papers that I set aside here. I don't think I want the band to be the floral because I've cut out that floral piece of digital art that's going to go across the band. So I think I want something a little more solid. I think maybe this piece here of the sage colored cardstock might be perfect. I'm going to cut that zip strip off really quick and save it in case I want to use it. I love zip strips. I use them all the time on my pages. They're perfect for little borders. You can tear them like a piece of washi tape to go on a photo. Just so many great ways to use them. And I think I want this to just stop at the edges of my white, which I cut at 11.5. So I'm going to go ahead and take a 1/2 inch off and then kind of guess about how wide I want this to be. This piece that I cut, this digital piece is, it looks like about 4 inches wide, just slightly over 4 inch. I'm going to make it slightly smaller than that, I think, and just maybe add a border or something with it. So I've got my piece of paper for this banner that I talked about in my sketch, which I really like how that looks. Now let's just see what happens when we put that across. I also gave myself a little banner here, and I do love the idea. I wanted to put this here and see what this looks like. Okay, I love how that looks, and like I said, I think I'm going to try and fill those in. So I want a pattern for my banner. I think this could work or this could work. I actually am feeling like I want to go more with this softer one so that this pops right against that. So I'm going to cut that down to about the right size for a banner. On my sketch, it looks like it's less than half the width of the page. So I'm just going to take a guess and say maybe 5.5 inches. Cut off my zip strip and save that guy. You never know what you might want to use. And do I want to go 5 or 5.5? I think I'm going to go 5.5. We're going to just take it. That way I can still cut it down if it feels too big. If I went 5, I couldn't really cut it down very well, could I? So let's do 5.5. And I don't know. I'm guessing I'm going to want it to be maybe, this is 11.5. I'm going to want a little bit of space there. I'm going to say 10 inches, and let's see what that looks like. This were to come down like a banner, that's probably about right. I may want a little more space up here like I've done in my sketch. Maybe I'll just cut off another 1/2 or 1/4 inch and call that good. Okay, so I've got that. I'm going to cut that into a dovetailed banner piece. So a trick to dovetailing, I like to put it on my Versamat, and this is 5.5. Half of 5.5 is 2 3/4. So I'm just going to go to that 2 3/4 mark and go up maybe, I don't know, 1 inch. And then I'm just going to cut from the corner to the top of that cut in the paper that I made and do the same thing on the other side, and then I'll have a nice even dovetail going on. There we go. Okay, let's see how that looks. And then I'm going to start thinking about where everything is going to go as far as the digital pieces that I cut and how I want that to look. Okay, I think it might be pretty to, remember I talked about I had cut this that I thought maybe I could use as a stencil, so maybe I can have some of that peeking out from around the banner. So maybe I'll just take a pencil and mark a little bit of about where I want my banner to sit. I'm just gonna really lightly kind of go around the corners and right where that dovetail is, and then that way I can use those marks to help me do a little bit of stenciling. So I'm just going to move this out of the way and I cut this out of a piece of cardstock. You could certainly cut it out of an acetate sheet or anything that you wanted if you wanted it to be a more permanent stencil. I just thought I'd give it a try like this. And so I'm going to grab our Seabrook pad, which is the light green color that I have brought to use. I've used a few different colors of green. That centerpiece was with sage. And this one is Seabrook, and then I also brought some pine ink, thinking maybe I could bring that in to bring some of this deeper green in a little bit with the lighter green. So we'll see what happens. I didn't show you what stamp pads I brought down. I brought this Seabrook. These are some of the other colors I brought to the studio. They were in this floral paper, and I was hoping I might be able to use the floral paper. So I grabbed all the colors in the floral paper, plus the pine, hoping maybe I could bring in that deeper green. And we'll see how that all turns out. I may not use all of those. I might use them all. Who knows? Okay, back to our sponging. You could always tape this in place with some masking tape if you wanted to. I'm just kind of going for it here, holding it with my fingers as tight as I can so it doesn't really do any moving. And one nice thing you can do when you're using a stencil, instead of lifting it all the way up, hold it in place and lift up and see if you're liking what's happening with what you've got there. I'm going to come over here and do just a little bit that comes above that corner. Just lift the edge so I can see what's happening there. Need a little bit more ink. When you're putting it through the stencil, I feel like you think you haven't gotten any ink there. So it's always nice to check to make sure that you feel like you're getting the ink coverage that you want it to have. I'm just going to have a little bit coming out over here by the bottom of the banner, I think. This will also help me, those little marks, to put the banner back where I had it to begin with. And over this other side a little, and down at the bottom. Isn't that a pretty look? I'm going to bring it over in just a second to the close-up camera. It's probably harder to see on this further shot, especially with it being such a soft color. But I think that if I bring it over and show it to you close up, you might be able to see. Okay, let's move a few of things out of the way that I've got here and take a look at this close up. Okay, you can see here that I have done a little mark here and here where the corners are going to go at the top, and some marks here at the bottom, the corners of the banner and that center part of the banner. And I think that made sure that I got plenty of sponging. I didn't want it to be too dark. I wanted it to feel really subtle. So I'm going to come back over here and start building my page now that I've got that. I'm going to bring that sapphire base back in and add this to it. And maybe start building a little bit of this page. Need to open a brand new adhesive here. It's funny to me, I wish I were one of those people that could just look at a photo and just go to town. But I like to do a little thinking ahead, especially when I've got to pack supplies to head to the video studio. And I definitely change my mind on a lot of things. As I was trying to decide which papers to grab today, I was like, would I want dark colors? Would I want light colors? And I just held a bunch of things up to my photo until things started feeling about right. So we're all gonna just keep our fingers crossed that what I grabbed is gonna look really great. Okay, I think the next thing I need to do is add this guy. And remember, I had that idea of sponging some of these pieces. I think I'll try and do that for you on the close-up camera, and we'll see how that turns out. I have these cut on my Cricut mat, so I'm going to bring this over where I can do it where you can see it. And I'm going to start with maybe some of the lighter colors. I also have some masking tape, which is really handy, and that way I won't get a bunch of color on top of other pieces. So I'm just going to kind of mask off a few things that I want to be yellow. I don't have to worry too much about the edges, because these are going to pop out. Like, see this piece right here? I'm going to pop it out. I already have the outline, so I don't have to worry about the outline. I just don't want it to go onto other pieces that I might want to sponge in a different color. So I'm just going to do a little bit of masking here, and then I can move those kinds of things around as I mask and sponge different colors. I might want to do that center of this flower, and I think once I start sponging, you'll be able to see these better. I'm going to take that center out because I might want to do that a different color, and that's going to be harder to mask. Let's see here. We'll see. All right, I'm going to start with yellow. This is honey butter, actually. And one more spot I probably should mask off. We'll see how this turns out as I do a little bit of sponging. Ooh, that's going to be pretty, isn't it? When you are using a blending brush with your inks, if you're worried about it becoming too dark, which I'm actually really loving how that looks, then you can always daub it off on a scratch piece of paper. Like up here, I could have just daubed a little off before I did that sponging. So I'm going to come back over to my page and hold my banner over it. Let's go back to the far camera so I can see which parts are actually going to show on here. Oh, I think I have this backwards. Yes, Yes, I do. I'm looking at the one on the Cricut mat. I would have been in trouble. Okay, I'm going to put this on top so I can kind of see which things are actually going to show, because why sponge things that aren't going to show, right? Okay, it looks like that yellow flower is about what's going to show. So that's going to work out just about right. I'll just sponge what's over there and what's over here and leave out this middle part. So let's go back over to our area that we're sponging. I'm going to move these. I'm going to try the leaves next, and I'm going to do pine ink. We're going to see how that looks. I'm going to start out pretty light because it's a darker green, but that will allow me to see if I like the idea of the leaves in green. Let's see. These are leaves, I think, right here. The flower might, I think those are leaves. We're going to go with some leaves right there. Okay. I think everything that's left over there is leaves. So I'm going to grab that pine ink and a blending brush. I like to keep a blending brush for like darker greens, and then one for like lighter greens, and one for yellows, and one for oranges. And then that way things seem like they are easier to, if I don't get my brush all the way clean, I can easily just continue to use it without a problem. So I am daubing off, as you can see on this blank part of the paper, so that I don't get this too dark. I can always continue to add color, but it's hard to take it away. And I'm just using our close to my heart pads for this. I need to get a little piece right here and save my flower. This one's tricky. I've got one leaf right there. I think I'm going to try, we'll see how this goes, to do kind of a gradual. Maybe the centers could be a little darker of those leaves and the outside's a little lighter. That might be pretty. And then same up here. Okay, I've got quite a bit going on with my pine ink, and I think that's going to be pretty with this darker color. I think that'll also feel like the sapphire, where it kind of grounds all these softer colors. So I've got that happening. Let's see what else I can get happening here. I think I need to go over here to this other side and do a little masking. So that I can color these leaves. All right. Obviously, it looks like it's mostly leaves, so this green is going to be our color that we are on the longest, it looks like. I kind of like that some parts are a little darker, some parts are a little lighter. I think once I pull these out and paper piece them into that other piece, that it's going to turn out really, really pretty. Okay, I want to bring in a little bit of blue since we're using some sapphire on the page. I think I want to do a lighter version of blue on here. So maybe I'll do this flower here with some blue. And I think I'd also like to bring in just a touch of pink since we're talking about girls. So let's do this flower here maybe in blue. You know what, I'm going to come down here and do this lower one because I overlapped into that flower a little bit. Good thing I cut two, right? Always do more than you think you need. You know that saying in building, measure twice, cut once? Well, for me in scrapbooking, sometimes I just cut twice. Just turns out much better when I decide to do it that way. Okay, I'm going to grab a blue brush and use this Capri, which is in this paper. This is one of the colors that I looked at. And one thing to know about Close to My Heart, this is a kind of a really cool thing. We always, on our papers and our paper kits, we label on the back side of the zip strip which colors are in there, which is how I knew which colors to grab. Oh, I keep touching the green pad. I was like, why is that green? Let's try some blue. That is why you should never have two pads open at once. Now let's go and see if I can fix that. There we go. If you guys are like me, there's never a perfect page, right? And nobody knows that but you. So I feel like we did fine covering up that green with my blue. And I think I'm also, just for fun, gonna color this flower right here pink and see if there's a way I can tuck it in there somewhere because it's such a pretty flower. And I might want to do the center of that flower in a different color too. We'll see how much when we get it on my page shows and if we even need all these things, but I'd rather have them and be able to grab them as I go if I need to. So I'm just masking off whatever I won't use. There we go. And I just need a brush that I can use on my really pretty light pink ballerina pad. Oh, I think that's going to look gorgeous on there. I think sometimes it's surprising what colors you can use on a page because I think you look at this picture, but I think the reason that pink is going to look so pretty, first of all, it's in that floral paper that I grabbed to use, but secondly, I think it brings in kind of the colors of our skin tones a little bit, which is nice. Okay, last thing I'm going to do is take the center out of this guy, and I think I'm going to sponge him with my sapphire because I think that might be nice to bring that sapphire onto the page with the title and the border around the page. So I'm just going to use this to go right on top of that pink with some blue. There we go. Oh, out of the screen. So I've got everything sponged now. We're going to come over here and have fun doing a little bit of paper piecing. And then we can see how it all goes together. Okay, I think we've about got all of the flowers we need to fill in, and I'm loving how that looks, and I'm actually really liking that darker pine in there. I think that's going to look so pretty with our photo. So I'm going to go ahead and put down my banner. Use the little marks I made for myself. That's turning out so pretty. I love that little spray of florals coming out from under that banner. Now I think with this being a pattern, I want to mat my photo. And I think I'm going to do a little bit wider mat than I normally do. So I'm going to grab some white daisy cardstock. This is a 4x6 photo. So I think I'm going to cut this 4.5 by 6.5. That'll give it a nice, help it really stand out on its own, I think, against that pattern. So see how that looks. Yep, I really like how that looks. And I'm just looking at how everything's coming together. I really want that blue to show, so I'm actually going to off-center this a little bit because I want that blue to show, but I also am feeling like this is sort of disappearing. So maybe I will add, this is what zip strips come in handy. I'm going to add this green zip here. Let's see, I think I made that like 5.5 if I remember correctly. Let's see what that looks like on top. I like that. Let's see if I can do this where my blue will still show. Yep, that looks nice. Then our title, let's just lay this on here and see how it's going to look. I like to kind of put all the elements together before I do much gluing of all the top layer. So this is going to say Girls' Night. It's much harder to spell on camera. Good thing I did those ahead of time, right? Okay, I really love that. I love that this sapphire is on the outside. I love the title, but I'm looking at this feeling like I had added a few little sapphire elements, but they're not really showing. So what if I add some sapphire right up here? I'm going to see if I can find, this one has a sapphire zip strip. Let's cut that off. And I'm going to try it at skinnier width. I think I'm going to cut it at 1/4 inch. And just use half of this zip strip and see how that looks against that other one we did. So I think 5.5 is what we decided. I really am taking chances here, aren't I? Ooh, I think I like it right there in between that sage zip strip and the floral paper. Really like how that looks. And I'm looking at this thinking I want some details here on my white daisy, but I want them to be subtle. I know I cut some butterflies, so I'm going to bring those in and just play with those a little bit and see if I like any of those there. I've got some white ones. It's probably hard for you to see that, but I'm really loving the white on white there. Let's see what Seabrook one looks like. I think I'm going to go Seabrook. So I'm going to see what I've got here that will, I think I want it on the light side of Seabrook, and see what I can do here that might be fun with those. I think I've got one other kind of butterfly in here somewhere. Yep, here he is. Maybe a little lower. Oh, I've got journaling I want to put on. I did print it ahead of time and cut it into strips. And I think that will fit nicely here on the side. So, you know what? Before I do that, I am going to do one last thing. Isn't it funny how as you go, ideas start happening? I'm going to see if I can do this without moving too many things. Maybe grab some scratch paper and cover that. And grab my gold gilt spray. And I think instead of spraying it, I may actually, when I want my my splatters to be a little bit bigger, I like to take the lid off and just tap that on my finger, and I'll show you what I mean. So I've got this shaken up, so hopefully it's nice and blended. And I'm just going to take this and pat the lid on my fingers, and this dries actually quite quickly, which is awesome. And maybe I'll move this and do a little bit over on this side. I just have it in an old box here, so I'm not getting stuff all over the table. A lot of times close to my heart orders, if it's not a huge order, come in these boxes. They're perfect. They're almost like a pizza box, but a pizza box would do the trick as well. Next time you order pizza, save your box. Okay, I like that added just a little bit of shimmer and glimmer to my page, and now I think I'm ready to add all those other things on top. and glue everything down. Let's see if I can find myself some foam tape. I'm going to add that to my photo and also put this straight on my Versamat so that I can make sure I'm getting things nice and straight. I may actually go back and I'm going to have to print that photo again. I just got some gold on there. I may actually go back and move a few things around, maybe add a little more blue in my flowers. But I can put it all together and then decide if it still needs that. And if you don't put your adhesive all the way to the edge, or if you don't push too hard when you put something down, usually you can still go back and tuck something behind it or cut it so that it looks like it's tucked back behind. Let's see, what do I have that's glued and what's not? I have not glued that guy on. Put that right here at the top. And I really love how it looks with this stenciling coming out around the edges. I'm going to add this little half zip strip right below that. And my photo. I just had an idea too. I grabbed a bunch of different colors of embellishments that were in the papers I grabbed, and I might be able to add some of this blue that I want to have show with embellishments. So maybe I'll do that. Because it's not ending up showing as I'm putting this down, is it? And like I said, I'm going to have to reprint that photo. This is not quite straight. I'm just going to straighten it a tiny. I love that our Close to My Heart adhesive can still move a little bit once you put it down, because I am always adjusting as I build. Okay, here we go. And I'm going to hurry and put my title on. Let me center that girls before I start putting that down. I love this alphabet. I think it's really fun. And one of the nice things about this alphabet is I feel like you don't have to line everything up straight because everything's a little bit different size. There's uppercase, there's lowercase. And I love that. It makes it so much easier when you start putting things on a page to be able to let things be a little wonky instead of perfect. I think I'm going to add my journaling before I do my butterflies, and then that way I can use it kind of to help me decide where they're going to be, and then I can embellish. So I just printed my journaling on some strips. And here's a trick. If you are building a page and you want to be able to add your journaling later and you've already printed it out, you can always just add some adhesive to those strips already, which I have done, and then stick them onto a piece of wax paper or something like that, and then you've got them easy to pull right off and use, and you don't even have to worry about if they're in perfect order, because they will be in perfect order when you pull them off that little piece of wax paper. I do that a lot, like when I'm going to a crop and I'm taking pages that I want to do and I want to be able to go home with them actually done. I'll write or print my journaling and maybe put them on strips like this and then glue them onto some wax paper. And then it's easy to be able to add that instead of having to go home and add it. This one doesn't have quite as much adhesive. Okay, this is going to help me know where I want those butterflies. So I'm just going to grab those, and actually once I get them on, I'll show you everything close up, because then you'll be able to see, I think, these colors a little bit better. I'm just going to add him to that corner, and I'm going to kind of create a visual triangle with these three butterflies. the fact that I've got 3 different ones, I think will make it be a perfect visual triangle and help your eye move right through the page. So I'm going to let one butterfly kind of look like he's landing on my title. One down here in the corner. So I need one up here. And I've got a really cute guy that can go up there. Maybe I'll have him turn that way. So I'm adding adhesive. These are pretty dainty. You can see these cuts are pretty intricate. You could use a teeny little glue pen or liquid glue, but I love our Close to My Heart adhesive, and I'm just really careful when I put it on, and that works out just fine for me. I'm going to let that one fly this way since this one's flying that way. And now that I've got those on, I think I can embellish. And I told you I grabbed a few different colors of dots to bring down, and I think I'm going to try and use some of those blue and maybe some of these pink, or maybe just blue. Let's see how it goes. I really wanted to show some of the blue that's in this floral paper, and it ended up being covered up, so I'm just going to grab these. I like to put these on using something like a pair of scissors or a piercing tool, where I can just slightly bend the carrier sheet and lift them off. And I'm going to use some hearts. I think that might be cute. And that'll bring in the blue. And I actually am thinking I could bring in the blue with this zip strip too. So I think I'm going to add that right underneath. Nothing like adding something at the last minute, right? I'm going to cut this to 11.5 because that's the width of my white daisy. And then we'll go take a look at it close up once I get my embellishments on there. This kind of brings in all the colors on this page, which I'm really liking, but it means I'm going to have to lift things up carefully. Oh yeah, I love how that brings in the pop of the colors here, don't you? That means this little butterfly has to lift for a minute. I'm just going to very carefully slide something underneath him so that this can lift up. Taking chances and living dangerously. There we go. Ooh, 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 that was worth it, wasn't it? I love that. I love that little pop of color. Okay, I'm just going to add a few more of these blue embellishments. And I love, love, love how that's looking. To bring in the blue from this paper, and now I've got some blue in those stripes, which I really like. And just add a few embellishments in these colors. Maybe a tiny little heart over here. And a few more dots scattered around in here. Okay, I'm really happy with that. Let me pull it over here. Now that you can see it from a distance, I'm going to pull it over where you can see it close up and talk through some of the things we used again. All right. As you remember, my challenge to myself on this one was to use our digital collections in a different way. So I made the butterflies large. I printed an overlay that was meant for a card size and a large size to go across this middle. And I printed an overlay that was meant to cover a 12 by 12 page in a small size and used it to sponge with. I chose to use colors that were soft and light that were in my photo and let the photo pop because it's darker, but I brought in a few dark accents like the sapphire and the pine to pull in those darker colors. And I love how subtle these Seabrook butterflies are on that white paper. If I had cut a lot more of the Seabrook, I probably would have glued 2 or 3 together here, and it would have felt like a chipboard butterfly. That's a great way to get something that's really delicate like this to pop a little bit off your page without using foam tape. So I may end up cutting a few more of each of these butterflies so that I can stack them like that and have them do a little bit of popping off the page. But I'm really happy with how it turned out, minus my gold splatter here. Before I take a picture of this to go on the video, I'll make sure I replace that photo. And I hope you enjoyed scrapping along with me today, and that I didn't fluster you too much as I move things around, but that's part of my process. I don't know if it's part of yours. I do a lot of moving around and switching colors and adding things here and there as I'm putting together, but it always helps me to start out knowing what photos I want to use, what story I want to tell, and sometimes even sketching out a little bit of what I want it to look like. So I hope that inspired you to do something fun and new with our digital collections. Thanks for joining me.